Hi everyone, Tomasz from Frames here. My today's guest is Tim Huynh, street photographer based in Hawaii, who not only creates some great real street photography work, but is also the director of Feel the Frame, a documentary devoted to street photography, which he released back in 2020. I hope very much you will enjoy my conversation with Tim Huynh. Tim, welcome. We finally made it. Welcome to Frames. It's so nice to have you here. You know, we have been in touch for a while, and I've been following your work for even a longer while. Great stuff. You are a street photographer yourself, but so you are on the streets most of the time. But not only that, you also created a documentary film about street photography, which is just great. As far as I remember, we reviewed the movie right on Frames 1 or 2 years ago. Great, absolutely great documentary. We'll talk about it a bit later. But first, just tell us just a little bit about yourself. Street photography in Hawaii, right? Where you mention it's not the most bustling and bustling place, for this gritty photography, street photography, but still you are doing it there and you are doing an amazing job. So tell us just briefly how it all started, what fascinates you, and how do you find those frames, in Hawaii?
Well, thanks for having me. We finally made it here on the live. It is 9 o'clock, I believe, 9 p.m. my time. So if I have a little bit of red eyes, I apologize to all the viewers.
Red eyes here because how early it is, So,
but thanks for having me. Hawaii street photography is growing. Definitely when I first started, maybe 14 years ago, it seemed like maybe I wasn't aware of it, or maybe it seemed like just me and visitors were the ones that had cameras, but now it's growing, and also the whole digital analog scene is growing with a young crowd. So, when you go out to Waikiki, which is our most visitor tourist attraction area, you'll see a lot of people with a lot of locals, a lot of young kids with cameras. So I've always wondered that when I first started shooting street, I kind of got discouraged because I felt like I was doing that alone. And it's always fun to do it with somebody, with a friend or somebody that you can bounce ideas, share work with. So I remember just thinking back then, like, am what I'm doing even, am I doing it correctly? Or like, will this ever catch on in Hawaii? Because it's always in the big major cities like New York, London, Tokyo, even San Francisco, things like that. So to see it progress, Instagram has a big cause of that. It's really a joy to see.
Do you remember those initial, this initial trigger, or maybe inspiration, or maybe a particular photographer, somebody who really made you aware of how fascinating this genre might be, and why did you then start exactly pursuing it in your area? Do you remember when it was and who it was?
Well, for me, it was Vivian Maier. So before the whole documentary blew up, I was living in Chicago for a year, and where I was interning, the other intern was friends with John Maloof, who found all the negatives. So he was telling me about this website, and his friend is getting a lot of buzz around her work, and then he showed me the work, and I just remember just seeing the images, Vivian Maier's black and white images. I was just so mesmerized by it. And I think part of it, just being in Chicago at the time, I thought to myself, I can make images like this looks fun, and I think I could do it. I'm here in the city, right? So, and I have my camera. At the time was a Canon 50D, a big, bulky, heavy camera. So I went home, I looked at the website some more, and I went out the next day with my camera, and I did not get anything nearly as good. It was all blurry. It was very hard to even get close to anybody. And I think just that difficulty and that struggle attempting street photography And I think at that time I didn't even know it was street photography. So just attempting just shooting candid photos on the street, I just had more respect for it and more the curiosity just grew from there.
Yeah, you mentioned, you mentioned documentary. So we have very often we hear it, street photography, documentary photography, kind of in one sentence. What is it actually for you? Is it more capturing? It's more about capturing, those unique moments simply for their visual appeal, for their social appeal, or is a big part of your photography, the idea and the will to exactly to document our times in terms of, leaving this document for next generation and so on? Or is it basically a mixture of both of those things? Where do you see yourself?
I think it's a mixture of both. I think the big difference between the two with street photography and documentary, like photojournalism, has a initial context to it. So like when you see a photo in a newspaper, there's usually some kind of text to give meaning behind it. Whereas street photography doesn't, it's more in the interpretation to the viewer. And I think that's what draws me more towards street photography, because I can take a photo and you and I can both have different opinions on it. And that's what I like about it, where it's pretty much open-ended.
So I can imagine in your case, and I guess I'm correct me if I'm wrong, you are probably not the biggest fan of, captions and overly lengthy descriptions and text content next to the images?
Yeah, because I want to make my own story when I see a photograph. Now, if I'm seeing a photo, like if I'm reading a story and then there's a photograph to it, that's different. But if you're just showing me photos, I'd rather just leave the text out, because it almost loses this mystique sometimes. Mm-hmm. But if it's part of a story or part of a magazine, that's different. Then it goes hand in hand more better.
Okay. And you mentioned before, you were talking, I guess, about your beginnings. You didn't even know what does it mean to do it correctly. Okay, let's talk about. Let's talk about today. I mean, for my understanding, nothing like really, correct exists. I mean, everybody has his or her own eye, but do you refer to any rules, traditions of this particular genre? I mean, is there something you are trying to follow in terms of those ideas and rules?
Well, pretty much in the past few years, especially since COVID, with TikTok and Instagram, and you may have seen it or recognized that a lot of like these TikTokers with million plus following, they'll go up to a stranger and ask for a photo, and they call it street photography. And I'm not sure why they would consider that street photography. I guess it has a cooler sound effect to it. But I think what's more interesting is just capturing a scene. And I think a lot of people that are new to street photography, a lot of younger people, they just revert back to what's on their education is really on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube as well. So if they see somebody with 1 million plus followers and they're doing that type of, I guess street portraits, and they think that's the only avenue for street photography, that's what they're going to do. When really street photography is capturing moments as it is. It's not posed, it's candid. And a lot of it is just waiting on a corner and just trying to capture a scene rather than flashing somebody right in their face, and making them upset. But they see videos like that are popular and a lot of views, and they think that's the way to approach the art.
Yeah, exactly. It leads me kind of to the next question here. Two questions actually. So one is, respecting privacy, exactly, and holding this respect, towards the people on the street, towards your subjects. It's different, right? When exactly approaching someone asking for a street portrait, it's different when you photograph a scene. it's different when, you know, when depending on the, I guess, part of the frame, maybe people are, you know, filling up, and if they are, you know, how do you see those things, especially today, you know, in this world when we when we often struggle with this kind of definitions and rules and law, you know, restrictions. What is privacy for you in street photography? Does it exist?
You know, well, at least I know it's different in the laws and the regulations different in different countries and things like that. You know, in the US, as long as you're in a public space, you have the right to take a photograph. Many people don't know that. For me, I kind of feel the situation, if it's worth taking a photograph, is the guy going to get upset or the lady's going to get upset? A lot of times I kind of process it in that split of a second. Is it worth it? Are they doing a cool gesture, or are they wearing something nice? And you kind of go through the motions in your brain within that split second. If they get upset, well, I'm taking a photograph because they have a cool shirt on, so I can compliment them there. But I never feel bad. I think Bruce Gilden said in one of his videos, he never feels bad in what he does because he's not doing anything illegal. And from my standpoint, I'm not doing it. I'm not hurting anybody in what I'm doing. So if you're not doing anything that's hurting anybody or that is illegal, you shouldn't feel bad in what you're doing. But I can understand if certain European countries it's not allowed, then that's always in your subconscious, right? So I think you just gotta wherever your country you're in, you kind of just adjust and adapt that setting. Because as you look at photos in the UK, I've always wondered, why is it always so far back? Or like Switzerland or France, why is it always so far back, like across the street? And then that's when I realized like their laws are different, so they're just adjusting to what they're allowed to do.
Yeah. And what about emotions? So is there a part of your process, you know, the approach, are you trying your pictures, your images to convey certain, you know, particular, maybe human emotion of any kind? Because most of your pictures, or all of them, maybe contain humans, yeah, in them.
Right.
Do you shoot at all, you know, images without people on them?
Without images, maybe some storefronts.
What kind of emotions? What kind of emotions you're trying?
Emotions that I'm trying to capture. You know, it's not something that I'm trying to look for, but if I capture it and it makes somebody, usually for me, it's the easy one is to find something that's funny or weird, kind of something that's kind of odd. Yeah. So if I feel that way, there's a good chance that somebody else may feel that way. But honestly, I'm not trying to look for it. It just, if it happens and I take the picture, it's right there and there. It's not something that I'm trying to look for or forced to make happen. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And have you had any considerations in the past? I guess you shoot exclusively in color.
Color, yeah, color and digital.
Color and digital. And have you had any considerations or maybe trial periods, you know, when it comes to black and white? And many photographers, we know it, in street go for black and white, right? Yeah. And continue working like this. But you decided to work in color. Do you know back down there why?
When I first started off, I shot black and white because I thought that's what street photography is, was only in black and white, because I was always referring to Vivian Maier, you know, Cartier-Bresson, you know, those iconic images, which was they only shot in black and white back then because that's what they had until like maybe the 60s, 70s. So that's what in my mind, I thought street photography is black and white. And then I took a workshop in San Francisco, a street photo. It's no longer around, but there were a street photography festival. I took a workshop, and it really opened my eyes to more contemporary street shooters, what people are shooting in this day and age. And color just, color and black and white is just two totally different animals, and I never did well with black and white to begin with. Color, you just see the world in color, so the vividness pops out. It triggers my finger or my eye to snap that shutter button. But yeah, I experience now that I'm so deep into color, and that's predominantly my portfolio. I'm just sticking with that. But sometimes there is a moment where it depends, a silhouette, something like that calls for black and white, or the move with the tone. Then I may shoot it in black and white or change it. Yeah.
So basically, most of it is including the reactions on the street, of course, which are sometimes, like you say, splits of a millisecond. Basically, all of the process is really instinctive, right, for you. I guess street photography in general is a very instinctive kind of genre, because, of course, you have to be reacting, you have to be in the flow, right, on the streets. How often do you go out and photograph these days?
These days, probably 3, if I'm lucky, 4 times. 3 times, yeah, 3 times, but only like maybe a couple hours for 3 times a week. Before it used to be like every day. It used to be, nowadays, with work and then my YouTube channel, being busy with my YouTube channel, putting content on that unfortunately has kind of taken more importance. But I noticed in recent years, going out and shoot when I'm mentally there instead of trying to just force it every day, I'm more effective in that way. So yeah,
it's interesting. I also released a small video of mine, some kind of a photo walk, just yesterday, I guess, or 2 days ago, when I mentioned how, with all the different tasks we have, which kind of derived from our photography passion, but how much more difficult it gets to find the time for the actual photography. But do you find so are you pre-planning, in your calendar, I will go shoot there and there, or are you doing it more spontaneously?
If I pre-plan, it's gonna drive me nuts.
Exactly,
because my schedule is all over the place, and then it never worked out well for me. If I feel like I have 2 hours, the sun looks good, and I feel good mentally, let's go out. Let's just grab the camera and run out.
And do you experience, a completely different days, when you just really grab the flow, images are coming, you feel it, and the days where it's kind of dead, like you?
Thinking? Most of the days are just, I don't get anything. But there are a few days where I can get maybe 4 decent images in one setting. But most of the times it's just I'm just out burning calories.
Yeah, but which is also a great thing, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about your setup, or about your camera these days, camera of choice. What are you shooting with?
I was shooting with the Ricoh GR3 for almost 4 years. I just recently sold it. So I'm using the Sony A7S III. This is more my video camera with a 50mm. So I'm kind of getting adjusted to that. So I'm not totally sold on that. I might look into getting another Ricoh or something compact, but we'll see.
Ricoh sounds like a street photographer's dream. I mean, so popular with street photographers. So did you grab the Sony because of the video capabilities, and then you're trying to adjust?
Well, I had the Sony for work, and so it's not like I picked it up for a street photography. I just had it, and I just use it while I sold the Ricoh. But the Ricoh it took a while to get adjusted because I was always on a SLR type of camera. But once you get adjusted to it, it's just the perfect camera because of the size. I can fit it in my side pocket. No one ever questioned me on the street because I can get this. It's literally smaller than the iPhone right here.
Right.
I can get so close. It's the 28mm. I can get nearly this close and still get the person in the foreground or whatever I'm shooting in the foreground.
Wow.
It's really a street photographer's dream, but the battery life is really horrible. That's why I sold it. Like I had 6 to 8 batteries, and it wouldn't even last me half a day.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
So they gotta fix that.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk now about something very special you did a couple of years ago, which is, I mean, really respect, and I think it's a unique project. It was a unique project on the international photography scene. You created a documentary movie about photography, so it's called Feel the Frame, and we will link to everything down in the description box, to our review, to your page. The entire documentary is now available to watch, right? Initially, it was, I guess, under a paywall or something like this, but
video,
now just watch it, right?
On demand.
So tell us now about the movie. I mean, the documentary. Why the idea? How did it happen? How did you connect with the photographers you featured in the movie, and so on? I mean, it's excellent, really.
Thank you. The film is free on my YouTube channel, and Tomas will have the link down below. So the initial idea for the film was to feature photographers in different countries or cities and bring them all together. But financially, because this was a passion project, financially I had to get over that fantasy and just narrow it down to one city. And people might say, well, it's always New York. New York is still the mecca of street photography. Even though there's a lot of countries that have risen due to social media, New York is still that place where you want to go to street photography. And what helped with that was there's a lot of street photographers a lot of prospects that I could reach out to, that see if they were interested in the film. I did mention in my previous YouTube video, when I hit 10,000 subscribers on my channel, I will give a full breakdown, BTS breakdown on how I made the film, all the behind the scenes stuff that I think a lot of people will find interesting. But to share with you here, I narrowed it down to New York. I had an initial connection, relationship with Paul Casco, who's featured in it. So this is kind of something that I've been kind of manifesting probably for a year and a half, because I shot it in June 2018. So I probably was manifesting this since 2016. And I narrowed that down to New York because there's a plethora of photographers that I could reach out to, have them included in the film. Now, initially, I just was going to shoot interviews. I had no idea how it was going to be from beginning to end until I started editing it. And then the way I chose the photographers was I sent whoever responded back to me, because a lot of people didn't respond back. And I don't blame them, because they probably see somebody like, oh, who's this guy from Hawaii wanting to do a video in New York? So the people that did respond, I sent them a questionnaire, and I just read it's more like I kind of knew their photos, so I'm not too worried about the quality of the work. It's more their backstory, how interesting their stories are, how does it tie into street photography today and in the past, and how they got started. And I just wanted to make sure each photographer really had their own presence and not one overlap one another, especially with the portfolio and then the background work. And then I definitely made it an emphasis to highlight women photographers, because there's so much, especially in New York, there's so much talent there, the female photographers. So once I got I went to New York for 10 days, and I just shot all the interviews besides 2. I think afterwards I shot Michael Ernest Sweet or 4, sorry. So I shot all the interviews except 4, but all the main cast, and I brought it back to Hawaii. I took a mental break from it, and then I started editing it. And it was just slowly I started to piece on it. I would work on this after work, slowly piece it, move things around. I would transcribe the whole interview, and that's how I would edit the footage.
Mm-hmm. So you shot the movie, edited the movie, everything yourself?
I hired people to shoot for me because it was my first time in New York.
Yeah.
So I was like producing it and just trying to get the logistics down because it was just such a tight window. But once I got back here, I realized I still need to shoot a lot more, a lot of B-roll and then additional interviews to talk about the masters that I featured in the video, the film. So even when I came back, there was still a lot more to film, and I think if I had lived there or was closer to New York, it probably would have been completed sooner.
Do you? I have a assumption. In the back of your head today, there is some ideas maybe boiling about part 2 in the future, or maybe different kind of documentary.
When it was released, I didn't put full effort, but I just try to see what's out there. I would like to do a fill the frame UK or fill the frame Japan or different countries. It is a lot of work just setting it up. That would have been the ideal scenario. If not, maybe a biography documentary on a photographer would be good. But it's I think about it, but it takes a lot of work, and then just the financial component to it. It's
no, really. But you pulled it off. You pulled it off. Hats off, really. I mean, everyone, make sure you watch it. The link below, and wonderful work. I mean, I know what it takes to, and we all know it kind of what it takes to produce one, 20 minutes YouTube video. Yeah. But producing a documentary like this and of this quality, of this kind of insight. Did your own photography? Did you, after working with those photographers from in the movie, in the documentary, did you feel some kind of a change, or some kind of a shift in your own photography? Did your photography benefit from this period of working on this movie?
I think for like Paul mentioning, working the scene, and because before I would just walk and shoot, and for when I listened to Paul talk about just staying on a corner, staying on the area, and just waiting for things to populate. You see a person sitting on the bench, and then a bird flying by, or just staying slowly, just populating the frame. That is much more effective than just walking endlessly. Everybody's different. You can still get good photos walking. But visualizing an area and seeing things come through is probably what I've learned from that, from his interview.
Excellent. I mean, so definitely, it's always the same, getting in touch with other, great photographers. It's always so fascinating. Then right, putting it into the mix with what we already have inside. Our work keeps going forward, right? Let's look at a few images of yours. Finally,
I don't know which one I pulled.
So. Let me just. I would try to sharing the screen here, and let's see. Let's start with this gentleman in the grocery store.
Okay, grocery store. I'm on my lunch break. I just like the flag. I think I shot this during July 4th of like 6-7 years ago. I like the flag, and I like that we don't see his face and him bending down to grab some eggs.
Yeah, it's lovely. I mean, also I like your this sense for composition. As I can imagine. Again, you're walking there, so I can imagine a camera always somewhere there, maybe in your head, maybe hanging around your neck. Probably you're looking for some, drink or some food for yourself, but you react right on the spot. So are you always in this kind of scanning awareness mode, or it just happens? How do you, in which kind of state are you here? Do you remember when you notice this situation?
I'm always, lunch break, so I always have my camera on me. So I am somewhat hyper aware of trying to make a photograph happen. But I'm also hungry. So I'm trying to look for something to eat. But if I see something, I'll take the picture and worry about whether I post it or not. I just want to take the picture.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Let me scroll to another one. Just find it.
The one above is a good one. The one with the blue wave. Yeah. So that's shot on the iPhone, whatever it was at the time, iPhone 9 or something. I'm just on my way to the grocery store again to get my son some milk. And I see this guy, homeless guy just sitting in the middle of the road. I mean, he could get hit by a car. He could have got hit by me if I wasn't paying attention. And my initial reaction is to always see the subject or what they're doing, but also pay attention to what's the background is. So I like the background, and I like that it's just clean and he's just in the middle of the road like that with no other distraction, no other cars in the way.
Yeah. Yeah. So always looking for those interactions, right? Tensions between different elements in the scene, like kind of coincidental, settings, juxtapositions of different elements, right? Okay, let's talk about shot like this it's a gentleman with an ice cream in the hand, right? It's camera movement is there. I guess it's shot with a flash and so on, right?
Yeah. This is me experimenting with flash. I think I'm just kind of in a rut with my photography. I think we all face that times in our journey. So I'm in a rut and I need to mix things up just to spice it up a little bit. I add a flash in there. I really don't know what I'm doing per se. I'm just taking a photo of whatever I see. Ice cream. I have a few ice cream shots. Just low hanging fruit. I take the photo pretty close. The guy he's not upset or anything. And I just walk away. I just take a quick photo and walk away.
So you decide, to publish this photo, present it to the public, right? Out of probably, certain amount of other photos which you erased or, they kept sitting on your hard drive or whatever. You decide to present this image. For you personally, on an emotional level, what is it about this image that you find good, you find, valuable?
I actually don't like this photo. I should remove it.
Okay. Well, I don't. That was not my intention, right?
Yeah, I don't. That's been a while ago. To me, it doesn't. It's not a reflective of most of my work. I'm not sure why I published that, but I could just say the backstory is just always experiment, I guess.
Okay.
The emotional tension or there, probably very low level, if any. But yeah.
So do you notice a regular kind of different phases, within all those years you have been shooting where you kind of feel your photography is taking a different shape, different direction?
Definitely. I think especially pre-COVID, it was always, I felt like it was always changing and always experimenting. So a little bit all over the place. The only thing that's probably consistent was color and digital. It was probably not until actual COVID happened that my work became a little bit more linear, a little bit more consistent together.
Okay. So here you have the beach project, right?
Yeah.
This is all Hawaii?
Yeah, all Hawaii and Waikiki.
Okay, let's talk about not only this photo in particular, but a little bit about photographing on a beach, and also about Hawaii in terms of being so different, of course, to, let's say, New York.
Yeah.
So you were looking hard, I guess, from the beginning for where to execute on this your street photography passion, right? In Hawaii, you are based there, and beach seems to be one of those places where people gather, right? It's a characteristic of Hawaii, definitely, and so on. Is that why? Are you finding this fulfillment in places like this one when compared to, to the streets of bustling, New York City?
Yeah, the beach is very interesting because it's, especially Waikiki Beach, is just so unique to Hawaii. It's a mixture of locals, tourists, surfers, people that are on the beach the first time in their lives. And it's also a lot more calmer to shoot on the beach than on the sidewalk. So if I'm shooting on the sidewalk and I'm not getting anything, I may just walk over to the beach on the sand, and just because it's a lot slower and more calmer, people are just laying down, getting a sunbathe, suntan. People are coming in and out of the water. It's just a lot more slower pace. And then once I get to a groove of just pressing my shutter button, I may jump back onto the sidewalk. But the beach it can be fun to shoot.
And exactly in a place like this, it's kind of in a way, vulnerable place. People in their bikinis, people in their, And so, are you shooting quick here, or any privacy concerns here, or people are really relaxed to this kind of shooting?
Most people are relaxed. If I'm photographing from behind, I'm gonna take my time if they don't see me. But if it's something, they're fully awake, they're just getting a suntan or something, or worst case, they see a guy walking towards them with the camera, walking in their direction. I need to be quick about it, so I'll act like I'm walking a little bit slower because I'm walking on the sand. I can fake my motion a little bit, do some improv acting around there, and then just process what I'm gonna do, what my frame is gonna be. A lot of times I miss it because I'm not gonna just stand there and just press right away. But most of the time when I miss it, it's not even a good shot. It's even if I had the perfect frame anyway. So I lose sleep.
Are you kind of zone focusing on the camera, or in autofocus, or what's your technique?
Zone focus, yeah.
Helps when while walking, right? And exactly.
Yeah, because the autofocus, at least on the GR, it's almost hit or miss, especially if you're walking. If you're still, it's fine, but if you're walking, it's hit or miss. So zone focus is the way to go.
Yeah. No, wonderful, Tim. Two last questions. One kind of more practical, one maybe general about the future and so on. We talked briefly about social media and the influence on what's happening now, international and so on. How has it been for you? You also present your photos, right, on Instagram and so on. What role does it play, or did it play, in your photography? In both ways, speaking of exposure, but also speaking of, inspiration, coming from other artists. Is a big part of your existence as a photographer?
Honestly, not so much, because I still draw inspiration from the masters of photography. I still look at a lot of my photo books, because it's such a tangible thing and having it in your hand. Instagram is just, I follow who I want to follow. So I don't have a whole lot of people that I follow, and it's just hard to sift through what's good, what's not on a phone. That's the challenging part. So, for me, I have a top 5 photographers that I refer to, like William Eggleston, Winogrand. I refer to their photographs, their books, whenever I need that inspiration. Instagram, social media is more just the connection to the photographer, or that relationship. For me, I know other people like to follow other people for inspiration, but I think a lot of times that can get messy, because if you're following somebody, let's say 1 million followers, that might play into your mind like, this is the type of photography I need to do to get more popular or get more followers. We live in a superficial world, so For me, it's just, I just use social media just for the connection.
For the connection, okay. And the second thing I wanted to ask about is kind of the future, let's say, of street photography. Where do you see it going? Do you see any trends? Do you maybe yourself try to push it, in a certain direction, or are you looking for certain maybe new approaches and so on? There's inspiration on one part, but there is the future, exploration and so on.
Yeah.
Street
photography, is probably the most popular that it's ever been. And with anything that gets super hot, like a stock market or something, it's going to come crashing down hard. So I've kind of said this, and I wrote a blog about this in 2018, that there's going to be a street photography crash. And I wrote that in 2018, so it's 2024. It got even hotter post-COVID because everybody was at home, right? Watching YouTube videos, consuming content. So when will that happen? I'm not sure, but it's kind of inevitable. And I think kind of like what it was mentioned in the film, my documentary, street photography was popular in the 60s and in the 70s, and because of Winograd and John Starkovsky, kind of championed that genre of photography. And then for some reason in the 80s, it just kind of fell off. 80s and 90s, people were more interested in other type of art. So I could see that playing the same way, especially with AI. We're still in the infancy stage of AI. We don't know that. Yeah, that's going to change everything.
I was about to mention, it's difficult not to mention AI these days, in any conversation. But okay, on the other hand, don't you think, the AI, I can go on the computer and just basically prompt whatever I want, not even being never in my life in any particular
right.
Create the image. Don't you think that because of exactly that, maybe there is some crash, maybe there's less people doing it in the future, but there will be this core group of photographers who exactly will be on a mission to document real life, right, on the real streets. And I kind of believe in that, and I think the thing you are doing is the best example of that.
I think I agree with you. I think regardless of whether street photography tapers off or crashes, if you enjoy shooting and enjoy having a camera in your hand, just keep doing it. And regardless if nobody talks about it for the next 10, 20 years, it will revive back up, kind of like how it did in the 2000s, right? And people are just so fascinated with real imagery. So I like it. Don't stop. Yeah.
Yeah, and also you document life, place in 20 years, your images will be gold. In 100 years, it will be, it will be so precious, right? To have a look how I was, in 2000.
Yeah.
So, Tim, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. I'm so happy we finally made it happen. All the links in the descriptions again, the description, all the very best, with your photography. Who knows, part 2, a documentary at some point in the future. We stay in touch, definitely. I mean, I think you're doing an amazing job when it comes to, cultivating and, promoting photography with a camera in your hands, So thank you so much. We stay in touch. Have a good night. Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.